We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk. All right, welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. I am Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
What? And we are still in St. Pete, which is great, but we're going to be heading to HSR this weekend. We'll talk more about that after we get started with the show. Aaron, we got some hot boys. We have some producers to thank. What? Hit them up.
Same amount as last time.
Yeah, you guys are slipping out there, huh?
I know. It was growing. Now it's got a...
Yeah, they're not about that Sriracha boy like drive. I'm telling y'all.
All right.
That spring drive is going to be popping. You're going to be sleeping at the wheel. You're going to be sad.
Yep. We got producers. We got Brandon J, Eric A, Robert G. And then our Sriracha boys are Scott H, Matthew G, Brian R, Matthew M, Sean H, Niki F, Todd M, Aaron L, Richard P, Ray L, and Robert W.
Thank you guys so much. Can't thank you guys enough for being part of that program, and we really appreciate you guys supporting us because honestly, like, that really gets the day-to-day stuff done, monthly stuff done for us. Can't thank you enough for your support. Please consider joining that if you haven't already. There are some stuff that comes along with being a Sriracha boy as well. You get the nice gear that comes out quarterly. Yep. Aaron has discussed many times.
Posters,
yeah, hoodies. We're getting into hoodie season. That's going to be perfect. And then additionally, like we announced last show, I think there'll be a spring drive in possibly 2023 once that number hits. I think we said 50 people. Was that correct?
50 sounds good.
Yeah. 50 sounds good. But I think it was 50 on that anyhow. Aaron did send out that email Monday this past week as far as the openings on the memberships, the ones who did sign in.
Some did.
Yeah. Obviously, if it filled up too quick, you're sleeping at the wheel. So clearly you have not bought a Porsche recently because you don't understand how quickly things have to move when you need to do something. But you'll get another chance probably next quarter or something like that. I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Those that did get in, congratulations. Welcome to the elite. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of it. You are going to be eligible for the drive from now on, when you're in there, as long as you stay put. And you're going to get eligible for goodies that we give away monthly, and you'll also get all your P-Car Talk gear annual stuff too as well. So thank you for those who did make it in. So let's get started with the show. Aaron and I read this and watched it earlier, but before we got started, I wanted Aaron to watch this little 10-minute clip that they did on this gentleman, George Vaccaro, about his 912. If you don't know, that car's up for sale right now on Bring a Trailer. It's a 67 912. It's a really, really good romantic story about somebody who buys a car and hangs on to it for 54 years. He just recently passed, so he's the late great. He will be missed by many. He was very involved in the 912 community. But this was just an owner, just like us.
Yeah. European delivery in 67.
Yeah.
Let that sink in for a second.
Exactly. So little cliff notes. Obviously, I'll paraphrase the video because it's 10 minutes long and there's a lot of information in there. He wanted to go on vacation with his wife. This was pre-children. So it was 67. He wanted to go to Europe, and his wife was a school teacher. They were going to go for 3 months.
Yep. Time off.
Like, geez.
Time to do it.
Like, hey, we're going. He was like, I'm going to quit my job. Like, they planned for it. He's like, I'm also going to buy a 912 and take European delivery. And instead of renting a car the entire time there, we're going to drive this 912 around all over Europe. A dream probably all of us still have to this day to do, even with a modern car or an air-cooled or whatever you want to end up doing it with. But what a great love story with this car. And that the original idea was for him to sell the car when he got back, ship it back to the U.S. because it was in high demand, and make money on the car, and basically had paid for his European trip with this car.
Makes sense.
And then get back into life. As we know, you kind of got, told the story already. He's owned the car for 54 years, so he couldn't do that. Obviously, all of those memories that were made, all of the stuff that happened with his wife on that trip, all of the great things they did, all of the good stuff they saw. They traveled 6,000 miles while they were in those 3 months, which is a ton. He took a diary the whole time. It's just...
He's got video. He's got film of the
It
car.
was just very, very calculated trip that he really, really wanted to do, and him and his wife wanted to do. And going back to what Aaron just said, video cameras were not accessible in 1967. So he definitely knew this was going to be a momentous trip for him and his life, and an impactful trip for him and his wife. So he went and acquired a video camera at somewhere. I don't know where you did that back then, but he got one, and it shows him of actual footage taking delivery of the car there, their trip in Europe, doing stuff and having fun, like home video stuff. And I mean, think about that's 1967, and he's doing this stuff with that.
Not only that, they were still hard to get in 67, Porsches just in general, because he couldn't even go through a normal Porsche avenue of getting the car. That was one of his things. He had to go through AAA, which had a buying service at the time.
Yeah.
And then he spec'd it with the AAA.
Which is crazy.
And it doesn't even make sense. And it was for, what was it, $4,500?
Yeah. So, and that just shows you that the Porsche dealership in the U.S. wouldn't even accommodate him. So he wasn't going to be defeated. He was looking for other avenues. Yeah, he was going to do this. It didn't matter. So you got to appreciate the guy's fortuitousness to stick to that and say, this is what's happening. You know, long story short, he kept the car for 54 years, went through a couple engine rebuilds. He retired in 2000, continued to enjoy the car, and that's around that time he kind of spent a lot more of his personal time, like scrubbing the car down, polishing it up, getting it back up to the brand new speed it was, and basically taking it to, you know, PCA events or California events all over Rennsport, all of these events for the last like 20 years basically from his retirement. Unfortunately, he did pass away, and now he had twin daughters. They're selling the car. Aaron and I were kind of wondering, like, well, why don't they keep the car? Well, there's probably two reasons. There's two of them, so there's only one car.
They got to split it somehow.
And then on the flip side of that too, they didn't get into the details of it, but maybe there's not into Porsche, and like their story behind it is they want to sell it to somebody that will continue the legacy of the car, driving it, enjoying it, tell its story. So all of that paperwork and all that stuff goes with the car, and it's on for sale, like I said already, at Bring a Trailer. I think it's already up to like 90 grand, but it has 2 days left still. But it's a beautiful car. I'm sure many people in Southern California probably know of George or know of the car. We have good friends that have 912s. You know, John Benton and Kevin Lynch are both 912 guys. I'm sure they knew George. I mean, it'd probably be pretty tough not to know this guy at some point. Whether how well they knew them is debatable, but like I'm sure they knew of him at least.
You're probably not going to get that engine rebuild for the same price he got it that first time in '74 though. I think it was like $900.
Yeah, full engine rebuild for $900 in '74, which was still probably, I mean, $1,000 then was a pretty stout amount of money in '74. You think about that. People were buying cars for that. So
that was most of his car. Well, yeah, that was a quarter of his car.
Yeah. So it's all relative, you know. I just thought it was a great story to bring up because it's such a romantic story. I just think it's so unique how, you know, this guy lived a great life. He had, you know, obviously daughters, wife, all this stuff, and great trips. But part of that life and a cornerstone of that life was this car.
Yeah, even after him getting, it was a daily for a while, and then he got a new daily, but then it still remained.
And it's just kind of funny. He wasn't a Porsche guy prior to this. He didn't own a Porsche. He was in the automotive business. He worked for Ford. But it's kind of interesting to see the dynamic, how this changed his life. And I don't think he was a super young man when he bought the car, maybe like late 20s, early 30s it looked like. But it totally changed his life, this vehicle. And I'm sure
Porsches are life-changing.
Yeah, everyone around him, I'm sure it changed their life. And I think it's so unique. I mean, there are stories of people that have owned the car from new, from the very beginning, but to own something this long, you know, from 67, you don't hear too many of those. Like, oh, well, I bought that car in 70, and this is probably one of those older stories. Yep. And it's never left hands. So, I mean, if you're hunting a one-owner car, man, it doesn't get any better than this, right? Because this guy documented everything. There's a diary of their trip from the first 3 months of ownership of the car. I mean...
And it was accidentally ordered in slate gray.
Yeah.
That's
which
something.
Is funny. Yeah.
He was going to get classic silver, which wouldn't have been a bad color, but, I mean, slate gray is cool.
Mm-hmm. Just a really sexy, cool, impactful story to hear.
I'm surprised that he didn't go the entire United States or like try to do that as he retired. You know, kind of like, I did Europe, let me do the States.
Yeah, it could have, and I think you and I talked a little bit offline. We don't know the details of that European trip. That could have been more wife influenced in the sense of like, well, she's always wanted to go to Europe forever, and if you're filling in the gaps, at least I kind of am, and you know I could be corrected if I'm wrong. It's no big deal. But the way it looked like, at least the way the story was narrated when we watched it, was, you know, they went on that trip and they pretty much, I think both of them knew that they wanted to have children at some point. So it was like, hey, we need to go do this and do it before we have the kids, because after they had the car, it looks like, and they came back not too long after that, they ended up having twin daughters. Yeah. So I'm sure that was somewhat orchestrated to have this big trip, and that might have been the wife's dream trip of, hey, I'm a school teacher, I've always dreamed of traveling Europe, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of listeners that are probably in those situations or on the cusp of that situation. It's like, well, you're with your partner and you're kind of like, well, if we have kids, it's going to be very difficult to do this, so if we're going to do this, let's do this now. And it sounds like they pretty much, like, you know, sold out, went for broke, and said, hey, we're going to do this now. This is the time. I'm going to quit my job. We're going to do it this summer. I'm going to buy a 912, and this is the way we're going to do it. And man, I think they're probably better people for it, to be honest with you, because I'm sure if he's still talking about that story 50-something 4 years later, obviously it was impactful, and he kept the car the entire time. I mean, yeah, I'm sure he looks at that car every time he went into the garage, no matter what, no matter bad day, whatever thing, moving forward throughout his entire life, you know, whatever spans of life, you know, when the kids are in high school or any of that stuff, you know, he just comes out and he probably looks at that car and he probably thinks of that European trip with his wife and's like, that's what that car represented for him. And people can still do this kind of stuff. I think a lot of people don't even realize you can do European delivery with Porsche, and it doesn't even have to be in a sports car. You can do that with whatever you want. Yeah. And you could probably do something very similar to what George and his wife ended up doing in a vehicle. Obviously, it probably won't have the same mystique because there's so much technology nowadays. They were using road maps and sleeping in tents at campgrounds.
I guess, if you want to.
But if you want to go old school with it, you could buy a new car and go old school and camp and stay in, you know, hostels or whatever, and beer gardens and all that kind of stuff, and like they did, and, you know, really kind of hang out and get immersed inside Europe, basically. Maybe a little bit challenging with, you know, obviously COVID restrictions at the moment, but at sometimes once that bounces all back, yeah, I mean, I would love to do something like that with a partner at some point. And I mean, you just think about how sexy of a story that is.
Sure, I'll go with you. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, your wife will definitely hate me for sure after that one. She's like, well, guess what? You can just marry Mike then, because you're going to go to Europe for 3 months with him? I don't think so. Aaron.
3 months. Ooh, that's
yeah.
Gonna be a long time for us.
That would be. That's it. I'm like, I would it'll have to be like a frat style if we did that, because I would definitely shave your beard at some point, like, and you wouldn't even know it, like, and then we'd like, it'd be a cool road trip, and you'd probably shave my head or something, and I'd be like, awesome.
We'll love it this way. It's
yeah,
my favorite.
It's fine. I'm going to leave it with the stripe in it.
He wouldn't get me anything out of it. No satisfaction or anything.
Yeah.
I love it. It's my favorite.
I was like, I'm going to just keep it this way.
I was going to do that anyways.
I'm keeping it forever. No, but I just wanted to bring the light with that. If you want to watch that story, it's out there. I think it's called the Gray Wolf on YouTube. Yeah. So it should be on there. It's a good watch. It's only 10 minutes long, but I thought it was worth speaking about. I thought it was very, very interesting. And
most interesting 912 I've seen so far.
Yeah. Well,
except for that one that BBI just built.
Yeah, well, that's a totally different car, right? Like, that's a race car. I would say this is the most interesting, and the car's bone stock, as the most interesting story that I've heard in a very, very long time, with a vehicle, with a one-owner caretaker, and now it's ready to move on to the next caretaker. So I would encourage whoever ends up buying this car, if they're listening to this, if they're one of the ones that ends up with this vehicle, you better drive this damn thing, because this guy did. I think he ended up, he rolled the odometer on it a couple times, so he drove the car. I mean, even though it looks perfect, I mean, he drove this thing. And in daily use back in the day, too, until he could, you know, get another vehicle. Basically, it was bigger, and he kept it, and then he parked it. So, yeah, do the thing, man. But I think it was worth talking about. So, moving on. We're talking a little bit about Toyota on the show. Why are we talking about Toyota, right? Doesn't make any sense. This is a Porsche podcast. You looking for daily
or what?
Yeah, they get good gas mileage, man. But anyways, but in all seriousness, the reason why I'm bringing it up is obviously it has something to do with Porsche. What it has to do with Porsche is Toyota wants to come back with the MR2. However, just like Toyota Fashion recently, they've reached out to the Germans on something else called the Supra. Yeah. They did not want to build a Supra. Well, clearly they don't want to build an MR2 either. Okay. However, they want Porsche to build it for them. or they want to take something from Porsche's lineup and plug it into this car.
Which is 718 4-cylinder turbos.
Sounds like it. They didn't say what it was going to be, but probably something like that already exists. They want to pay for that technology, and they want to use some Porsche, engineering dynamics behind it, and then they'll obviously make their own vehicle. If and when the deal works out, the car's expected to launch in 2024. No specs or rumors yet on exactly what the car's going to put out for horsepower or any of that kind of stuff, but it is going to be mid-engine, so it's going to be a midship, just like MR2s are. I've seen some of the renderings, but they're just renderings. Obviously, it looks very exotic, like every rendering
more
does.
Lotus-esque is what I imagine it.
Kind of,
now.
but I mean, it looks very, very good. Like it looks great. But again, it's rendering. Who knows what that's going to look like when it comes out? It may not look anything like it. It might look like, something that came out of a cereal box or something. It's like, great, this looks like a toy, just like I thought it would. It doesn't look like a sexy car. If they could stick to some of those rendering design cues, I think this would be a home run, because clearly that 718 4-cylinder turbo motor is strong. It produces a lot of power. We've seen some that are tuned that are ridiculously powerful. Putting this in a midship car, I mean, that's probably going to do some damage, and honestly, it's going to probably be the cheapest Porsche you can buy moving forward.
Yeah.
It might just have a Toyota badge on it, but it might be a Porsche. It's going to have a Porsche heart in it, at least, and transmission. What are your thoughts on that as far as this collab goes? Is this a good thing? I mean, this isn't the first time Porsche's ever collabed on anything as far as a car, but it's been a long time.
Like Hammer times.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it could go well, but I don't know. I don't know that. Why would you spend any time, if I was Porsche, building anything else? I mean, you're distracting. Well, I'm not saying distract yourself, but I guess if it's just motors, then maybe that's one thing. If they have a bunch of surplus.
Yeah, they might just be taking a power plant.
Yeah.
And they might just be paying for the power plant to exist and actually just plug and play. Like, hey, we're going to use this, and then we're going to build our car around this, basically.
That's where I can see that being a bigger deal for Porsche, because they probably have stuff laying around, or at least tooling, and where they can still make those 4-cylinder turbos as they're making all their EV stuff coming out soon. So.
Well, I think it works out well for Porsche, too, because there's so much heat within the Porsche world on those turbos, on those, flat 4 turbos that they made, as far as like, oh, they sound weird, they sound this. But maybe this will be a really good channel for them to repurpose a lot of them to sell a lot more through Toyota, and maybe they'll be able to recoup some green from that, instead of being able to push them all into their own cars where people get a little saucy about it.
Think Ray gets one to put next to the Fiero?
That'd be dope. But yeah, I'm excited even outside of Porsche that the MR2 is coming back. I always thought it was a cool car for Porsche. I mean, calling it Porsche for Toyota.
He's already succumbed to it. He's in there.
Yeah. So I might end up with. I'll be like, oh, I'll be that guy. It's like, well, it's really technically a Porsche, bro. Technically, I was like, why does it say Toyota all over it then? And why did it come from a Toyota dealership? Well, if you do the research, almost kind of like where you do with the E500s, where people are like, hey, well, technically it was built in the Porsche factory. I don't know if they're going to go that far. I mean, they may just be shipping them motors and
I think you're right on that. I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's just a power plant move.
Probably. There's nothing to, but the collab is supposed to happen. I think it'll be interesting, nevertheless. That'll probably be one of the cooler Toyotas around, right? So like now Toyota's going to be accused of like, oh, okay, so you outsource to BMW, you outsource to Porsche. Like, you don't build anything else
Still
anymore, right?
Still selling them.
Actually, sales should go up, right? Technically, they should be able to charge more because German engineering, right? But in all seriousness, I think that's pretty cool. I think it's a little strange, to be honest with you, because I think Porsche has its hands full right now with so much stuff, with EV stuff and changeover within models and all this kind of stuff that they're developing, and e-fuels and all. I know they have. I almost feel like this might be, and again, it could just be if it's just a power plant thing, then maybe it's not that big of a deal. If they're actually helping like co-design this thing or something like that, that I don't really see how they have the time for it, unless they're literally going to send over Japanese engineers and they're going to be OJT at the Porsche like warehouse, basically, like assembly line. Like,
here's how it goes.
Yeah, they're going to be wearing like the Porsche like uniform, but the Toyota hat, like just to let people know, hey, here's a deal. Like this is like a collab deal. Like so.
It'll be interesting.
But I'm not. It does, you know, to take the time to talk about this for a second, and because it's a rare opportunity that we have where it actually we can correlate this. I'm sure this has everything to do with Acura coming out with the Integra again, because it seems like there's going to be a resurgence of like Japanese cars that kind of like died off that are coming back. Even though all these Japanese companies are like, nobody wants these sports cars, and you know everybody in this market wants them so badly, probably because they're being priced out of Porsche, being priced out of all of these other places. So people are probably excited to go spend 50 grand for a 2-cylinder, I mean a 2-liter, you know, Japanese car.
Even for the older stuff now, same thing.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You can go buy a new one that outruns the old one. Yes, there's nostalgia factor there, but.
So it's not shocking that that's coming around and that's happening. Maybe a little shocking for especially for people that are JDM or Toyota just faithful, because I know that they have their own group of diehards, and I know they were pretty pissed off about the whole Supra BMW situation. So hopefully maybe they won't be pissed at Porsche. I don't see how they can be. They got to be more pissed at Toyota than they would be at Porsche, because if that's their home brand going out and outsourcing the best for their car, it makes sense, right? Like, don't you want to, if you can't be the best, like work with the best, right?
Yep.
So, and obviously Porsche makes great sports cars, so it makes total sense, I guess, in that sense. And they're good at mid-engine.
Yeah, they've been there. They've done that a little bit.
Yeah. Interesting. They didn't go to Corvette, though, for mid-engine, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe too much of a rookie thing right now?
Corvette's busy.
Yeah. Busy on the Z06 right now. Making a New Balance livery for the next race.
You know it.
But, yeah, I think that's strange and interesting, but also great. But, yeah, let's take a quick break, come back. We have some Macan GT4 RS to talk about, and then we have some HSR stuff to talk about. So we have quite a bit of stuff still. So let's take a quick break and we'll come back. And we're back. So we've talked about it many, many times. However, a little bit more news has come out. Macan EV experts seem to think this vehicle is going to be starting base price around $60K. That's actually very, very good. To be honest with you, to get any kind of Porsche at that level was nice. But it being new, CPO'd and EV, I think they're going to sell a bunch of these, man.
Yeah, they have. I don't know why they wouldn't.
They're already selling. They've already sold a lot of Macan, combustion engine cars. Like everybody's using the acronym of ICE, so you might as well just say internal combustion engine things. Yeah, sold a lot of ICE cars already. But I think they're going to sell twice as many of these EVs at that price point.
The EV thing's new. It's going to go so well. Everybody's on it. They love it.
Yeah. Well, here's where my mind goes, and you already know. Like what in the area we live at is very similar to very many cities in the U.S. Not to name anything specific, but there's a lot of haves in this city. Meaning like there's a lot of people that have enough money. So a lot of them the other spouse, I won't name gender, but don't work, and they hang out, and they just need a city car, but they want something new. Well, guess what? They don't usually like going to the gas station anyways, so this makes perfect sense. So this eliminates a place they don't like to go.
It's true.
And it puts them in a newer car, and it's EV, and it's not loud because they don't like loud stuff, and they got the new hotness, and they can go show their friends. I'm definitely talking about stay-at-home dads here. You guys get this? Yeah. But yeah, in all seriousness, I think these things are going to sell like hotcakes. I think, honestly.
What do you think a feature in one of the Macans is going to be? Like, is it just going to be the normal? You think it's really going to be off-roady at this point? I mean,
no.
We've seen the.
No, not at all.
The Cross Turismo looks like it can do some things off-road. Do you think this is going to be more just?
I think this is going to be their city dweller car that maybe gets around 300 miles of range, maybe on the upside of 400 once they get to that level, but I think this is going to be that dad, mom, young business professional, even whatever, if you have a vehicle and you live in a 20, 30 mile radius of the city, this is your city car. You drive to work in this car. Either you go to dinner in it, you hang out with the wife in it, you go on the weekends, you do brunch, you do whatever. This is going to be that car. And I still believe in, you're probably going to have some gas power car if you want to go on some long distance road trip, you know, like 4, 5, 6 hour trip somewhere else. You're going to have something else for that. Where I was thinking too, where I know there's a lot of Porsche people that actually own Teslas as well. I think this may be able to make them have a full Porsche garage. They can go ham now and just have a full Porsche garage, because now
should be a pretty big frunk.
Yeah, there's no way to really have the excuse, right? Like, I get the Taycan is kind of like, okay, well, it was really, really expensive. Like, I'm just thinking from my price point, you're like, okay, this needs to just do daily duty. I got to take the kids to like basketball practice, or I got to swim, or whatever they got to do. I got to go to Home Depot to pick up some garbage mulch for the lawn. I got to go do this. This thing can do all of that stuff. And it's, you know, on one charge, you're like, oh, let's go to dinner. Let's go to do that. And now you're also being earth friendly, being EV, and you haven't spent a crap ton of money, and you're in a Porsche.
And so it's faster than anything combustible right now.
Exactly. So I think it's, I mean, I wasn't even adding that part, but yeah, I agree with that, the fast part. But I think from a standpoint of maybe while you have your Tesla, you know, or your SUV Tesla, or whatever you have, you know, your Model D or whatever, you can probably sub in this and get rid of your Tesla, and now you can have a full Porsche setup. Because why wouldn't you, right? Like, why wouldn't you want a full Porsche fleet if you could have one? And I think this takes away the reason of maybe why you didn't have one before, because maybe that Taycan didn't make sense to go spend 140 grand for one just to do all that stuff I just mentioned, as opposed to you can go spend maybe after options, spend 70 grand on one of these. So you're spending half the price, and you're getting all of the stuff that you need to get done, and you're in a Porsche, and it's under CPO, and it's okay. That kind of makes a lot of sense. So I think
smaller footprint.
Yeah, I just think that these things are going to sell. I mean, like I said, they sold a bunch of Macans already, anyways. But in the combustible world, I just think these will do double, in my personal opinion. And I think we talked about this before on other shows. It's going to put a lot more people in Porsche too.
Do you think with the EVs, and as we're going forward with all the EVs just in general, that the speed limits are going to change? Do you think we're going to get like faster?
No. The reason why is because, man, the DOT has been so unrelenting with that speed limit. Like, they should have been raising that thing incrementally every 5 years or something by now. And that thing's not going up. It hasn't changed. Yes, I agree. I understand how physics work as far as speed does, like, cause more danger and cause, you know, things to happen faster, and people that are unskilled or any of that kind of stuff to happen. But the cars are way more capable. I don't even think you need EVs to go up. It should already be up, because of a Camry now has like 300 something horsepower. I mean, there's not very many cars that can't live in that 80 to 90 range without much effort. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but I think that should have been gone up a long time ago, to be honest with you. But I mean, that's a really like kooky thing, right? Like, there's places that rely on that income, and where they tax the citizens on speeding tickets and all this other garbage.
Still
and
gonna
like
be speeding tickets. I just figured that since the power is going to be there, it's just going to be different.
Yeah. No, I know there could be speeding tickets, but maybe there'll be a lot less, right? Because now people are usually traveling at 80 or 90. If they put the speed limit up to that, then now it's
110, 120.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I feel like those agencies always have that ace in the hole to say, well, like, well, we're encouraging people to go faster. You know, speed kills. There's so many related deaths to this and that and that. And then nobody wants to take responsibility for things anymore like they used to back in the day. So people are like, oh, yeah, well, we don't want to be responsible for more deaths. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. So everybody's kind of don't rock the boat. Everybody's at a stalemate. I know we spiraled, but I think this EV is going to sell a lot. This thing is already done, really. I think they're just waiting, to be honest with you. Their test mule has been running for a while. This is not a new thing. For everybody who's listening is not in the know. This thing has like been cruising around in Europe.
They said that it was going to be self-driving at all.
They screwed with some autonomous stuff on it, but they're not adding any of those features in. And at least not this gen, because I think they've seen where the legalities of that where it doesn't make sense for them because it's not even like allowed really. So what's the point of putting that technology in the car? I mean, at any given point, you know how this stuff works. It's all software anyways. Whenever that stuff does get allowed, when we're probably 95 years old or something, and that's when it'll get approved, and we'll have fully autonomous at that point.
Pretty cool. Yeah, nice naps here and there.
Been promised all this other stuff. Hey, we're still going to the moon though, right?
Yeah. Someone is.
Let's just take some pictures in the basement. Call it the moon landing. What a brilliant idea. All right, GT4 RS. So it hasn't been officially launched yet, but everybody's seen the final form. If you haven't seen the final form, it's out there. The official launch is coming from Porsche in November. However, a couple of unique things I've noticed on it, in even just zoom in looks, and I'm sure everybody else has noticed too.
Quarter window ducts.
Yeah. That's what's it. Yeah, you want to beat me to it? It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
I appreciate that. You just probably read that real fast as I was doing this. Yeah.
I watched it. I've seen the videos.
Yeah. But yeah, where they had the huge hole in it, where it was just kind of like plexi looking, looks way more race car-y.
It probably didn't do anything at that moment. It probably was just
looked more race car-y, but obviously for they're thinking rest of the world, which is not, you can't have something exposed like that. So they put louvers over it essentially, and it's louvered over the quarter windows, but it's still supposed to be bringing air into the mid-engine of the car. So
it is ducting.
It is. Because think about the challenge of that, right? Like with the GT3s and stuff, they're able to slam that air in where it channels over the roof and comes in, where there's that simulated ram air duct on top of the GT3s. Can't really do that with this car, and it needs more air. I mean, it's essentially, it's a GT3 motor in this car, so it needs the same air, so they had to figure out another way to get it, so that's one way to do it. Yes, it's getting it from the side.
Ducts,
it's still getting it from the side ducts, but it's clearly not enough. So that quarter window is supposed to be probably whatever cubic feet of air it's getting pushed in there. It's just enough probably to help. So
they must not be able to do the little scoop thing like they do on the GT3s and get downforce. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, just because where engine placement is on this. I think it looks pretty menacing in all black, though. I kind of like that launch. I don't know if they're going to launch it that way. I shouldn't use that term because they're going to haven't done their launch, but the showing of the car, what you're seeing in all that black, it looks pretty menacing. I can appreciate that. Looks like base prices are expected to start above 130, so that's not
an RS. So.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Yep. But that's the top of the price range for the GT4s.
Yeah.
Right? So 135-ish, 140-ish.
Yeah, so that's base in getting. They're saying not 130 on the dot. They're saying above 130.
Oh, above 130.
Yeah, so somewhere in that range, probably probably like 139 base or something like that. Who knows? No production numbers have been announced yet on what they're going to produce for that vehicle. As we know, it's an RS product, so it's probably not going to be a ton.
718.
Probably less than 2,000, I'm assuming. And then, as you may or may not know, they don't make an RS every year. So I don't know if this is going to be a 1-year run and they'll skip a year or two before they make another one, or if they run a 2-year run and then they don't make them for a while.
That'd be interesting if they did RS and then a new GT4 and then a new RS and then
yeah, because they don't make a GT3 RS every year. There's gaps in RS years when they have made them and when they have not made them. So look for that too. This may be a 1 or 2 year run on this vehicle before they stop it altogether and base off of what it does and maybe come bring it back in another year or two. I think it makes it very interesting though, because as we've talked about before, we may or may not be coming to the end of the full combustion engine run where there may be a hybrid. Since this is a brand new, I guess, model, it shouldn't be considered brand new, because yes, it is. It's got its own new aero, it's got all that stuff, but its heart is not brand new. It's coming from another GT product. I wonder how long this car lasts altogether overall. 10 years, maybe 5 years, who knows? I don't think this car is going to get to dictate how long it lasts. I think it's going to be dictated at a higher level than where when hybrid stuff gets put in to the GT stuff, when meaning like Andy and those guys start to implement that. I think that's going to make the half-life on this probably change a lot. How do you feel about having basically, I mean, it's not fair for me to call it this, but it is fair for me to call it this, a mid-engine GT3 essentially.
I think it's going to be an interesting thing. I mean, everybody's getting, if the gearing's right, like everybody else wants to complain about, who knows at this point. If that's no longer a factor, because it should be PDK, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's only PDK. So, well, to be honest with you, I don't think the gearing is going to be a factor because it's probably going to run the 911
it should.
gear
we'll
ratio.
See.
So, I mean, essentially, this is going to be a mid-engine 911 in my thought process.
Yeah.
I have nothing to base that on, but, you know, not to take anything away from the GT4 guys or any of that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that as a negative way. I'm just saying, like, that's going to be very interesting.
It's going to be very toe-to-toe.
As we know, the race car, the RSR, that is a mid-engine car. As much as they want to say that's a rear-engine car, is not.
As mid-engine as you could possibly
Exactly.
be.
That engine's in the back seat of that car.
Yeah.
When we've seen all of the skin off of it, and when there's 4 feet of room before you get to the engine and the rear bumper,
luggage,
and it's like, there you could put some bodies in that car. This 911 has a trunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that is a mid-engine car.
I think it's gonna be,
and I'm not even exaggerating that by a lot. We've seen with all the skin, and like, man, you see how deep that motor is buried inside that RSR race car. That is a midship car right there, man.
Yeah, it is nothing but. I think it's gonna be an interesting competitor in the 911 world now. I think it's finally getting its day.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to be really quick in the right hands.
I think it's foreshadowing a little bit too with the RS line that that's gonna be the very, very, very last thing touched. I think we'll see the hybrid stuff in the GT3s, but I think the RS is going to be the naturally aspirated stuff.
Those will be the only ones that get that.
I think so.
Special treatment at the very end.
That's going to be the least amount of things that they have to worry about. Production line.
Makes sense.
That type of thing.
That makes sense because that's supposed to be their untouchable line, right? So it would make sense. And they don't make them all the time.
Yep.
So maybe they can get away with only making, maybe they make 2,000 GT3 RSs and they make 2,000 GT4 RSs and they're all in at 4,000 combustion cars and their footprint, you know, they can get away because they sell so many other EV cars. Maybe that's how they do it. And then, like you said, the GT4 is going to be some hybrid mix, you know, hybrid engine. Same thing with the GT3, maybe, you know, smaller displacement with a hybrid engine in it, you know, who knows. Very, very interesting thoughts, though. I'm excited to see one of these in person. I hope I get to see one sooner than later.
Has anybody guessed on the power numbers? Do we know? We're just going to call it the same 500?
They were saying if it's not 500, I mean, it's knocking on the door. And I think it'd be just, for argument's sake, for them just to put it on paper to say, like, it has 495. But, like, the car really has the exact same amount of horsepower that the 4.0 GT3 has. It's over 500.
To be less than would be just another one of those things. Great.
Typical, wouldn't it?
The Cayman guy again. Yeah, great.
But it's just print at the end of the day, right? Like, none of that stuff matters. Like, if you really want to get down to it, like, even the GT3s that they say what they have, and then you go put them on a dyno and you do the ratio, and you're like, this car actually has way more power than they're even putting on paper that says it has. I mean, they've been doing that since the dawn of time.
Yep.
Yeah, since they've been making cars. And that's not exclusive to just their GT cars. That goes all the way down to their Carreras. Like, they underrate them on paper, but the cars way overproduce once you actually put them to an engine dyno or any of that kind of stuff and actually dyno the car, and it starts pumping out massive numbers, and you're like, wow. Porsche's notorious for that, though.
So do you think it's faster than the GT3?
I don't know. You mean like a 992?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you mean around a track or what?
Yeah,
around
Nürburgring lap time.
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Close?
I think it's close. I think we're talking probably no more than 10, but I'm thinking less than 10-second window between the two of them. You know, for people like 95% of the people listening, including us, could never tell the difference.
Yes, exactly. Nope.
Yeah. Could never tell the difference. I bet they both feel just wickedly fast. And I don't think there's going to be in this car, and like we've driven it, and you know, I don't think this one's going to feel gutless where we're like, oh my god. And believe me, we've driven tons of GT3s in the low power end range where they still had torque.
Yeah.
and the low end, and I swear that those GT4s just have nothing.
Yep. Which goes back to the gearing thing, or just torque in general.
Yeah.
Even though they're close, the numbers are close.
Yeah, they just feel gutless. Excuse me.
Mine's gonna die. It's fine.
Yeah, I got a cough.
This grape soda is not doing well.
Nope.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how close they are. And then when the GT3 RS comes out and just crushes all the numbers, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, sorry. HSR.
Yep.
All right. That's happening this weekend.
Halloween weekend.
Porsche is the marquee brand for HSR. If you don't know what that means, like every year HSR picks like a marquee that they're going to display. Basically, not just display, but invite more of than anything else. It's been BMW in the past, other Ford, whatever. This year it's Porsche.
That's heavy too. That's
Yeah.
a lot of
Why
cars.
that's significant is pretty much they're ringing the bell for anything unique within Porsche to come race at this race. So they work behind the scenes really hard and reach out to a bunch of folks that they know all around the world that have special cars and invite them to come to this event to come bring their car, and they assist with the travel, all that kind of stuff to like help this happen because they want to pump that marquee brand. I'm bringing this up because obviously we're a Porsche podcast, you're a Porsche enthusiast. If you're listening, I'm encouraging you to come to this event. It's this weekend. It's 2 days. It's Friday, Saturday. It's in Daytona at a great track, great facilities.
One of the best.
Great reason if you're maybe an adult and don't have children or something like that, or your children are gone and grown. Yeah. You want to get away for Halloween and come to this.
Yep.
Obviously Halloween's still on Sunday, but you get the point. You get away for Halloween weekend, you go down to the beach, you have a good time. I'm excited to see what ends up happening. I've been told, and it's sworn to secrecy, there's some very, very special stuff coming. Very special within Porsche. And it's not going to just be like a lawn ornament. It's going to be out there running.
Yeah. I've seen some things. I've seen some list.
Yeah.
I'll share the list later.
Yeah. I've been verbally told of
nice.
some of the stuff that's coming too. So yeah, we could share thoughts on that. What are your thoughts? And the weather's going to be phenomenal too. It's supposed to be really, really nice.
The more 935s that I see on track, the happier I'm going to be.
Yeah. So I know. Like I think they're going to have their own category to run against each other. There's so many. It's supposed to be coming. All the unique ones too.
Kevin's running a pretty deep list this year.
Yeah, I believe it. So yeah, there's some really, really significant stuff you guys are going to see out there if you make it there. And if you don't, you're going to be real sad because we've talked about this before. In the U.S., other than Rennsport, there's probably nowhere else you're going to see these vintage cars running. And I say in the U.S. because you can go to the Le Mans Historics because all these cars probably run there because they have a very healthy crew of special cars that run there. Not going to see this stuff anywhere else. You're just not. And it's asinine how cheap it is to come to this thing compared to like any other event, and the access that you get. We harp on it every year, but it really is that great. You can walk around, and this isn't a joke. You don't need a special pass to go walk the paddock and go see these cars and literally stick your head in the engine bay, stick your head underneath it, as long as they're not actually doing anything with the car. Stick your head inside the driver's seat. Look at all the stuff. It's very, very rare that you're going to get that kind of access. You don't even get that access at static displays that you get on these cars because usually there's stanchions around the car. There's all this other stuff. I mean, they do not literally care. As long as you're not doing anything destructive and you're not in a safety situation, you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah, as long as you're not annoying Brian Johnson, he'll talk to you while you're looking at the Porsches.
Exactly.
He's fine with it. He's
exactly. Cool. Yeah, we did a little walk with Brian Johnson, hung out with him, talked about cars a little bit. Those are just some of the people that love this historic stuff. There's going to be all types of stuff. Derek Bell's there. You know, there's just so many things there and elements of why this event is such a great thing.
Is it the biggest one they do? Is Daytona the biggest one they do? Because I feel like it's just the largest amount of pits. I don't know if it is or not. It just seems like it's spread out. Yeah,
I think it's one of the bigger ones that they do. And then obviously I think it's their showcase event. You know, it's their 24. It's at a great track. it's an international airport, so people could fly their stuff right in to Daytona. It's not that difficult to get stuff there. So it's just kind of a home run all the way around. And I think, our bucket list stuff, that's one of our things on our list every year that we're going to go to no matter what, come hell or high water, basically, because it's just so unique. And bonus year for us being Porsche marquee. So
What did you know about last year?
We did know that. We didn't know how late they were going to be to announce it, but we did know that was going to happen. And we actually have a couple of friends now, a little bit newer friends for Aaron, but guys I've known for a while, and not just like, oh, hey, we know they're racing, like actual people that I've driven with and spent like tons of time with and like vacationed with and stuff like that, actually running some RSRs in this event itself. So might get to screw with the car a little bit, might not be able to take it out, but like might actually be able to swing it around like the paddock a little bit. Like I know Sean will probably like, cool, dude, go take it around the paddock.
I'm excited right now.
Yeah, I'll just be like, wow, wow. I'll be like, I'm just going to do a little quick
Just a little one.
Yeah, nothing crazy. It's his car. Why wouldn't you let me do it? But we'll see. I'll report back on that. I think I'll be able to do it.
There's an RSR doing just nasty burnouts from one.
Well, I don't want to like, obviously destroy his car or the degradation, because obviously his team and Everhart and those guys are going to work on that car. So I don't want that to do anything stupid like that. But
maybe
I might just go out on track and just be like, throw me out. It's worth it.
It's my last one, boys.
That one, remember they did the Porsche marquee thing? I got the dude who got thrown out. That was me, bro. That was me. They're like, dude, I got a great video of them like actually arresting you and pepper spraying you. I'm like, sweet.
He's doing Bernie's in the middle.
Exactly.
Of the grass. Yeah.
But anyways, that's all I have. Do you have anything else for these folks?
I don't.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We want to thank all of our members, all of our Patreons, all of our producers. Thank you guys so much. We really, really do mean it. And we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
See you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at PCARTalk.com.